That is hit well. A Clemente home run, and the Pirates lead 1-0.
On December 31st, 1972, Roberto Clemente, the Hall of Fame right fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates and one of the most beloved figures in baseball history, boarded a DC-7 cargo plane at the Isla Verde Airport in San Juan, Puerto Rico. The plane, bound for Nicaragua, was loaded with relief supplies for the survivors of a devastating earthquake in Managua. Clemente, whose deep and abiding commitment to all sorts of philanthropic causes in Latin America, was moved by the reports of the humanitarian crisis in Nicaragua and insisted on accompanying the flight personally after learning that earlier shipments of aid were being stolen or misrouted. Clemente believed his presence, and perhaps the watchful eye of the media as a result of his direct involvement, would ensure the supplies reached those who truly needed them. And he was almost certainly right given his level of celebrity in the sporting world. At the end of the 1972 season, Roberto Clemente had cemented his place in the pantheon of baseball greats by notching his 3,000th career hit, a milestone reached by only a handful of players at the time, and still one of the magical numbers chased by professional baseball players to this day. Now in his late 30s, he was nearing the end of a remarkable career that included 15 All-Star Game appearances, an MVP award, 12 Gold Gloves, 4 league batting titles, and a World Series MVP. Still, he remained a formidable presence on the field, striking fear into the hearts of opposing pitchers with a blend of power and speed rarely seen in the game. But Clemente's importance transcended statistics and accolades. As the first Latin American superstar in Major League Baseball, he carried the hopes and pride of millions of Spanish-speaking fans, particularly Puerto Ricans, who saw in him a fierce, principled man who not only consistently amazed on the field, but also never shied away from using his fame to promote righteous causes around the world. He spoke out against racism, demanded respect for Latin players, and used his growing platform to advocate for equality and dignity, both on and off the diamond. Like Muhammad Ali, Clemente had long understood that fame meant responsibility. He was a deeply spiritual man who viewed humanitarianism as part of his life's calling and was humble but unwavering in his beliefs. That sense of duty, along with his growing frustration at reports of corruption in the distribution of relief supplies, drove him to action after learning of the earthquake that struck Nicaragua right before Christmas Eve, killing nearly 11,000 people and injuring another 20,000, and leaving more than 300,000 homeless. He organized the aid mission with urgency and conviction, despite friends and family voicing concerns about the plane's condition and the reputation of the flight crew. But Clemente, stubborn and selfless, brushed aside their worries. He believed that doing the right thing sometimes meant taking the risk himself. And just moments after takeoff, the aircraft struggled in the air, veered toward the Atlantic, and crashed into the sea. Clemente's body was never recovered. Roberto Clemente was just 38 years old. I'm Derek Kaufman.
I'm Jason Beckerman.
And this is Last Days, Roberto Clemente.
In the aftermath of the plane crash, grief rippled through Puerto Rico, the baseball world, and the broader international community. Clemente's loss was felt not just as a great baseball player gone too soon, but as the silencing of a voice for the voiceless. Tributes from the baseball world poured in within hours of the news breaking. Hall of Famer Willie Mays called Clemente, quote, a man of great principle and great heart, adding, he wasn't just a great ball player, he was a great man. Home run king Hank Aaron, one of Clemente's fiercest rivals on the field, choked up during an interview saying, he was the conscience of the game. The rest of us played for the love of the game or the money or the competition. But Roberto, he played for something bigger. Bob Gibson, one of the most feared pitchers of his era, said that Clemente's death, quote, felt like the game lost its soul. Even outside the sport, Clemente's passing was felt deeply. Civil rights leaders, Puerto Rican artists, and celebrities from around the world mourned his death. Muhammad Ali, who had developed a mutual respect with Clemente for his outspokenness and humanitarian efforts, called him, quote, a warrior for justice, a man with a mission. Puerto Rican singer Jose Feliciano, perhaps best known to Americans as the singer of the holiday classic Feliz Navidad, dedicated performances to Clemente's memory, while politicians like Ted Kennedy and members of Congress lauded him on the House floor. It was clear that Clemente's impact stretched well beyond baseball diamonds. He was a symbol of integrity, cultural pride, and fearless compassion. Within months of the crash, the Baseball Hall of Fame waived its customary 5-year waiting period and inducted Clemente in 1973, making him the first Latin American player enshrined in Cooperstown. He was also posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, among numerous other honors that recognize his towering legacy far beyond sports. Ballparks across America hold tributes in his name, and the number 21 has become a symbol of pride and justice for Latino players. His legacy lives on in annual Roberto Clemente Day celebrations in Major League Baseball stadiums every September 15th, a testament to Clemente serving as a bridge between cultures, an advocate for the poor and oppressed, and a standard-bearer for what it means to be not just a great athlete, but a great human being. And perhaps nobody did more to honor Clemente's legacy than his wife Vera, who until she passed away in 2019 worked tirelessly to make sure future generations understood just how important her husband was to the game of baseball and the world at large.
The investigation into the crash itself began almost immediately, led by both U.S. and Puerto Rican authorities. The aircraft, a Douglas DC-7 cargo plane, had a history of mechanical issues and maintenance problems. Witnesses and aviation experts quickly pointed to a laundry list of red flags, honing in on three critical issues. 1. The plane was overloaded with nearly 5,000 pounds of relief supplies. 2. It was carrying an unbalanced load with respect to the type of aircraft it was. And 3. The crew had a spotty safety record. And to make matters worse, the aircraft had not been properly inspected before departure. So within minutes of takeoff, investigators determined the combination of these issues caused the plane to experience engine trouble and plummet into the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Isla Verde. No survivors were found among the 5 people aboard, and as mentioned earlier, Clemente's body itself was never recovered, adding a layer of heartbreak and mystery to the tragedy. The official findings confirm what many feared. The crash was entirely preventable. This was not a situation where weather conditions or some sort of unexpected mechanical failure or pilot health situation contributed to the crash. The National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, made the following determinations in their final report. First, the aircraft was 4,200 pounds over its certified maximum takeoff weight, and the resulting imbalance compromised its ability to gain enough lift to reach cruising altitude. Second, one of the engines had been flagged for serious maintenance issues before the flight. Pilots had previously complained about the aircraft's condition, and the flight's co-pilot reportedly tried to back out of the trip just the day before. And the combination of overloading, mechanical failure, and poor oversight created this perfect storm that ended in a disaster. For many, Clemente's death was not just a tragedy. It was a symbol of systemic negligence and a sobering reminder of how even heroic intentions can meet tragic ends when safeguards are ignored.
I remember when Kobe Bryant died, this was immediately brought me back to this. Roberto Clemente is probably not to baseball what Kobe Bryant was to basketball, but it's close. And, baseball is not the sport it once was. But in the early 70s when this happened, certainly by the late 70s, early 80s, when I became sort of cognizant of baseball and its history, he was up there with the greatest of all time, with the Ruths and Aarons and people like that.
Less complicated than Kobe by scandal. Kobe had sort of the rape case and so forth, but post-Kobe, post-retirement, he was very beloved.
Famous off the field, off the court, not just known for their excellence in their sport. And this was the same sort of thing. Both at the tail ends of their careers, Kobe had retired, but relatively similar ages. And when Clemente died, it was the same sort of shock and heartbreak, especially in Pittsburgh, where he played all those years, and certainly for Puerto Ricans. But the Latino baseball community, which is now, a huge part of, integral to the fabric of baseball, at the time was growing. It was already starting. You had the Juan Marshalls and some other people who were just starting to make this kind of progress and inroads into the game. But Clemente was the hero. They all stood on Clemente's shoulders. They all honored him. He was the legend. And when he passed, it really did cast sort of the same sort of pall over the game, over the legacy that Kobe's death did at a similar age.
I think you're right. And reputationally, Clemente, when Muhammad Ali spoke about his death, it sort of tells you who he was viewed as. Muhammad Ali wasn't quick with compliments about all players. He thought players had a responsibility off the field to do humanitarian good, to do civil rights good. And he saw Clemente as a peer in that. This country is fraught with sort of a racial history that is largely dominated by black and white because of slavery in the past and so forth. But Clemente and Cesar Chavez and people like that are huge components of American history that I think are sometimes overlooked. And he was one of those lions of equality and civil rights and humanitarianism in that regard.
I think the fact that he was such a lion, the public outcry in Puerto Rico and among his fans worldwide was like nothing we've ever seen. Until Kobe, I really think there's a direct parallel there. And it led to actually increased scrutiny of air cargo operations generally, especially those involving humanitarian aid. Puerto Rican officials promised reforms, and Clemente's widow, Vera, would go on to campaign for better aviation safety standards. But for most, the investigation served as a grim postscript to a life defined by sacrifice. The circumstances of his death only amplified the mythic quality of his legacy. He died not for glory, but for service. And yet, the sense of injustice lingered. Clemente had always been careful, cautious, and thoughtful in his decisions. The crash was a cruel twist for a man who had so often spoken about fate and responsibility.
Today, Roberto Clemente is remembered not just for his rocket arm or graceful play in right field, but for the fierce moral clarity he brought to everything he did. There are maybe a handful of athletes who reach the mythic heights of someone like Roberto Clemente, becoming a symbol of something bigger than sport itself. Jackie Robinson and Muhammad Ali certainly attained this kind of status. And although he's often overlooked here in the United States, Roberto Clemente certainly stands shoulder to shoulder with Robinson and Ali when you think of global sports icons. Given his humanitarian accomplishments, it's fair to wonder if his baseball career itself might be graded on a curve. But Roberto Clemente's baseball career withstands any close scrutiny and remains one of the most accomplished and impactful in Major League Baseball history. Over 18 seasons with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Clemente established himself as one of the game's greatest right fielders, known for his cannon arm, elegant batting style, and relentless work ethic. A 15-time All-Star and 12-time Gold Glove Award winner, Clemente finished his career with exactly 3,000 hits, a milestone he reached in his final regular season at bat in 1972.
Everybody steadily wants Bobby to get that big number 3,000. Menwek on the 0-1. Bobby hits a drive to the back of the left center field. There she is.
At the time, he became one of just 11 players to reach the mark. Jason, we're big baseball fans. It still means a lot, but now more players have attained 3,000 hits. That march towards 3,000 when you're 11th and the sport had already dated back to
80 years
19th,
or whatever it was,
19th century, it was a very big deal in sports for you to hit to get a 3,000th hit, and it was something that was watched, as you can hear in that clip. Clemente won 4 National League batting titles and was named the league's most valuable player in 1966. His combination of offensive consistency and defensive brilliance made him a standout in every phase of the game. Like Mickey Mantle in his prime, Clemente was the very definition of a five-tool player with elite running speed, arm strength, fielding prowess, and hitting ability for both average and power. He also had a flair for the dramatic. In 1956, Clemente erased a 3-run ninth-inning deficit against the Chicago Cubs with a bases-clearing inside-the-park home run and became the first and to date only player in modern Major League Baseball history to hit a documented walk-off inside-the-park grand slam. The play was actually a bit controversial because Clemente ignored a stop signal from his third base coach, and the pitcher who gave it up said the play, quote, excited the fans, startled the manager, shocked me, and disgusted my club. Year after year, he delivered heroics on the field and was the subject of stories that are the stuff of legend. In 1960, he robbed Willie Mays of an extra base hit by violently crashing into the wall and needing 5 stitches on his chin in the aftermath. A sports writer called the play one of the greatest of all time, as well as one of the most frightening to watch and painful to make. Some stories became the stuff of legend when his batting coach George Sisler suggested he used a heavier bat to slow down his swing. Most players depend on incredible bat speed to generate power, but Clemente's strength necessitated heavier lumber just to maintain his timing. I mean, the old baseball guys speak about Clemente as being so strong that to need a heavier bat just to slow your bat speed is pretty mythic stuff. Who knows if it's true? A lot of this stuff is apocryphal.
I can't believe it is true, but I love it.
But I love those kind of stories.
Clemente's most iconic moment came during the 1971 World Series, where he led the Pirates to a 7-game victory over the heavily favored Baltimore Orioles. At age 37, Clemente batted an eye-popping .414 in the series and was named World Series MVP, solidifying his legacy as a clutch performer. But beyond the statistics, his presence on the field was magnetic. Fans and fellow players alike were awed by his laser throws from right field, his graceful speed on the bases, and his ability to rise in the most crucial moments. Like Willie Mays, Clemente always seemed to be aware of the sport's ability to entertain and awe in equal measure without any unnecessary showboating. In an era often overshadowed by power hitters, Clemente brought elegance, precision, and heart to the diamond, playing the game with a sense of purpose that extended beyond winning. And off the field, Clemente was a trailblazer for Latin American players and a tireless advocate for civil rights and humanitarian work. Born in Carolina, Puerto Rico, he never shied away from discussing racism, both within baseball and in American society at large. He insisted on being recognized with his full name in the media, Roberto, not Bob, and often spoke publicly about the mistreatment of Latino players in the league.
Jason, I wanted to pause real quick. I have baseball cards of Roberto Clemente, several in my
Well,
collection.
you're from Puerto Rico ancestry,
That's
right?
right.
You have a lot of Puerto Rican pride.
So he looms very large in my life, and my grandfather gave me several baseball cards. And early in his career, you probably know this as well, his cards would say Bob Clemente.
I didn't know that.
Early in his career. Subsequent years, when he became a superstar, the cards started saying Roberto Clemente. And it was because of his insistence that my name's not Bob. I'm not going with the anglicized version. My name's Roberto. And he insisted on the media treating him as a co-equal and observing the Latin derivation of his name.
This was common. This same thing tried to happen with Jackie Robinson. As great as branch trick he was, when he brought up Robinson, he brought him up because he said, like, you can appeal to a wide audience. And Jackie Robinson very famously, said, I'm going to be the person that I am.
Yeah.
And Roberto Clemente did the same thing. I can see it, right? You're trying to entertain. It's a marketing ploy to some degree. You want to sell jerseys. You want people to fill the stands. And therefore, what do you do for an entirely American and largely white audience? You call this guy Bob.
That's right. And we see
all
that
know
today.
Bob, right?
Now, most Latin American players call themselves by their Latin name. You have Jose
Now
Altuve.
it's not even.
Now it's not an issue, but he was a real trailblazer during his time. And his pride in his heritage and his willingness to stand firm in the face of prejudice helped open doors for future generations of Latino athletes, setting a precedent for dignity and representation. Clemente's sense of civic responsibility extended far beyond the ballpark. He spent his off seasons delivering food, medicine, and supplies to impoverished communities in Latin America and the Caribbean even before the fatal crash. And his philanthropic work wasn't performative, it was personal. He believed that fame was a tool for service, not self-promotion, and the humanitarian mission that led to his untimely death, delivering aid to those earthquake victims, was a natural extension of the values he lived by. Roberto Clemente didn't die chasing greatness in sports. He died chasing goodness in the world. While his accomplishments on the baseball field are deservingly honored on his plaque in Cooperstown, Clemente's final act was fittingly one of compassion and courage, a tragic end that only reinforced the integrity and purpose that had defined his entire life. In life, Clemente was a superstar. In death, he became a symbol. His legacy is now etched into the soul of baseball and into the hearts of people worldwide who saw in him a rare combination of greatness and grace. And because of what he meant to Latin American baseball players in particular, I wanted to give the final word to another all-time great from the Caribbean, Dominican Hall of Fame pitcher Pedro Martinez, heard here speaking movingly about what Roberto Clemente meant to the game and the world.
Clemente is more than just an icon. Clemente goes beyond history, goes beyond baseball. I remember Manny Sanguillen, the catcher and his teammate, say one time, Roberto Clemente was so good that when he fell in the ocean and he lost his life trying to do goodwill, not even the ocean wanted to give him back. As we all know, Clemente's body was never found, but he said that that was the main reason why the ocean didn't give him back, because he was that good. Even though we accomplish a lot in Latin America, nobody will ever accomplish what Roberto Clemente accomplished.